I pulled unsigned divorce papers from Zoya's purse while she showered upstairs, and my world tilted sideways. The documents were crisp, professional, and devastating in their thoroughness. Every asset we owned was listed with clinical precision, every shared account cataloged like evidence at a crime scene. My hands shook as I photographed every page with my phone, making sure the flash was off and the sound muted. Zoya's voice drifted down from the bathroom, humming some pop song she'd been obsessed with lately. The same tune she'd hummed while planning my destruction, apparently. The papers were unsigned but dated 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks of her kissing me goodbye each morning, asking about my day, sharing dinner conversations about weekend plans. 3 weeks of lies wrapped in the routine of our 12-year marriage. I was still staring at the documents when my phone buzzed. A text from Zoya. "We need to talk urgently when I get out. Important stuff about us." I stared at those words for a long moment, feeling something cold and calculating settle in my chest. Then I typed back, "Another time I'm on a date with your sister." I attached a calendar invite for dinner at Romano's downtown and included a restaurant receipt from last week to make it look legitimate. The shower stopped running upstairs. I slipped the papers back into her purse exactly as I'd found them, then walked to my home office and locked the door. My hands were steadier now as I forwarded the photos to Mitchell Barnes, our joint attorney, with a subject line that would get his attention. Urgent. Compliance review needed. Marital assets. In the email, I wrote, "Mitch, I need a full audit of our shared accounts and a review of our prenuptial agreement, specifically the disclosure clauses. I'll call you first thing Monday to discuss strategy. This is time sensitive." Next, I opened our shared cloud storage and created a new folder labeled Asset Inventory. I uploaded every financial document I could find from the past 2 years: bank statements, investment accounts, property records, insurance policies. Everything Zoya thought I was too disorganized to track. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent 15 years as a forensic auditor before switching to operations management. I knew how to follow paper trails, how to spot discrepancies, how to build cases that would hold up under scrutiny. Zoya had apparently forgotten who she married. I shared the cloud folder with Vera, Zoya's younger sister. Vera worked in HR at a competing brokerage and had always been the sharper of the two sisters. She'd also never liked how Zoya treated me, though she'd been diplomatic about it until now. My phone rang. Vera's name appeared on the screen. "Wilder? I just got your folder invitation. What's going on?" "Your sister is planning to divorce me," I said quietly. "I found the papers an hour ago." Silence stretched between us. Then Vera said, "That manipulative witch. I knew something was up when she started asking weird questions about asset protection last month." "What kind of questions?" "How to hide money from audits. How long someone has to disclose transfers. She said she was asking for a friend." Vera's voice turned sharp. I should have known better. Zoya never had friends with money problems. "There's more," I said. "I think she's been moving assets without telling me. Some of these statements don't add up." "Forward me everything. I mean everything, Wilder. I've seen this before in my job. Spouses who think they're clever always leave trails." I was about to respond when footsteps approached my office door. "I have to go. She's coming." "Call me tomorrow," Vera whispered. "And Wilder, don't let her know you know. Not yet." I hung up just as Zoya knocked on my door. "Wilder, why is your door locked?" "Just finishing some work emails," I called back, quickly closing all the browser windows. "Give me 5 minutes." When I opened the door, Zoya stood there in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel, looking like the woman I'd fallen in love with 13 years ago. But now I saw the calculation behind her green eyes, the way she studied my face for tells. "About that text," she started. "We really do need to talk tonight." "Sorry, but Vera called right after you texted. She's going through some relationship drama and needed someone to listen. You know how she gets." Zoya's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Can it wait? This is about our future." Our future will still be there tomorrow, I said, grabbing my jacket. Besides, family comes first, right? That's what you always tell me. The look that crossed her face was pure frustration, quickly masked by a forced smile. Of course. Tell Vera I said hi. I kissed her cheek, tasting the lie on my lips. I will. Don't wait up. Romano's was crowded for a Thursday night, which worked perfectly for my purposes. I found a corner table and ordered a whiskey, then called Vera back. I'm at Romano's, I said when she picked up. Can you meet me here in 20 minutes? Already on my way. And Wilder? I found something you need to see. While I waited, I reviewed the photos of the divorce papers more carefully. The lawyer's letterhead was from Kellerman and Associates, a firm that specialized in high-asset divorces. They weren't cheap, which meant Zoya had been planning this for months. The property division was particularly interesting. Our house was listed as solely owned by Zoya, despite the fact that I'd contributed half the down payment and my name was on the deed. Our investment portfolio showed balances that were significantly lower than what I remembered from our last quarterly statement. Vera arrived 15 minutes later, sliding into the booth across from me with a manila envelope in her hands. You look terrible, she said. Thanks, that's exactly what I needed to hear tonight. She signaled the waitress for a wine. Sorry, but you do. How long have you suspected? I didn't. That's the pathetic part. I thought we were happy. Men always think that, Vera said, not unkindly. You see what you want to see. Women see what's actually there. And what's actually there? Vera opened the envelope and pulled out a small digital recorder. This. I found it in some old files Zoya asked me to store for her last year. She said they were just work documents, but I got curious after your call. She pressed play. Zoya's voice filled the space between us, tinny but unmistakable. The transfers have to be clean, Rylan. If Wilder finds out about the Cayman account before I file, he could freeze everything. His forensic background makes him dangerous if he gets suspicious. A man's voice responded, Baby, relax. He's too trusting to figure it out. Besides, by the time he knows what's happening, the papers will already be filed and the money will be protected. I'm not taking chances. He's smarter than he looks. That's why we need to move the rest of the portfolio next week. Vera stopped the recording. There's 40 minutes of this. They've been planning to clean you out for at least 6 months. I sat back in the booth, feeling something shift inside my chest. Not heartbreak. I'd moved past that the moment I found the papers. This was something colder, more focused. Who's Rylan? Rylan Shaw. He's some trust fund brat who plays philanthropist around town, inherited money from his daddy's construction empire, now he pretends to run a charity foundation. Vera's expression was disgusted. Zoya met him at some networking event last year. How long have they been together? Based on this recording, at least 8 months? Maybe longer. I finished my whiskey, feeling the burn settle in my stomach. What's the Cayman account? Offshore banking. Probably where they've been moving your joint assets to keep them out of the divorce settlement. Vera leaned forward. Wilder, this isn't just adultery. This is fraud. She's stealing from you while planning to leave you. Not anymore, she's not. Something in my tone made Vera smile for the first time that evening. There's the auditor, I remember. What's the plan? I pulled out my phone and showed her the cloud folder I'd created. First, we document everything. Every asset, every account, every transaction from the past 2 years. Then we activate the audit clause in our prenup. You have an audit clause? I insisted on it when we got married. Zoya thought it was romantic that I wanted complete financial transparency between us. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Turns out it was just practical. What does the clause do? It allows either spouse to demand a full forensic audit of all marital assets if there's suspicion of financial misconduct. The audit is binding, and any hidden assets become subject to penalties. Vera's smile widened. You sneaky genius. She has no idea what's coming. Not yet, but she will. I signaled for another whiskey. How much do you hate your sister? Right now? Enough to help you destroy her. Good, because I'm going to need an inside source, and you're the only person she trusts who actually has a conscience. We spent the next 2 hours going through the recording and planning our strategy. By the time I got home, it was past midnight and the house was dark. Zoya had left a note on the kitchen counter. Hope Vera is okay. We'll talk tomorrow. Love you. I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. The next morning, I was up before dawn, sitting in my office with coffee and a legal pad, mapping out every financial move Zoya and I had made in the past year. The patterns were obvious once I knew what to look for. Small transfers from our joint savings to accounts I didn't recognize. Investment withdrawals that Zoya had explained as rebalancing our portfolio. Credit card charges for restaurants and hotels on days when she'd told me she was working late. My phone buzzed with a text from Mitchell Barnes. Got your email. This sounds serious. Can you be in my office at 9 a.m.? We need to talk before you do anything else. I texted back, I'll be there. Zoya appeared in the kitchen doorway as I was putting on my jacket. You're up early, she said, studying my face. Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd get an early start on some projects. About last night. I really do need to talk to you about something important. Tonight, I said. I promise we'll talk tonight. She stepped closer, putting her hand on my chest. Wilder, is everything okay between us? You seem distant lately. I looked down at her hand, remembering how that touch used to comfort me. Now it felt like a lie. Everything's fine, Zoya. Just work stress. She studied my face for another moment, then nodded. Okay, but tonight we talk. No interruptions. No interruptions, I agreed. Mitchell's office was downtown in a glass tower that screamed expensive legal advice. I'd known him for 8 years, ever since he'd handled our prenup negotiations. He was thorough, discreet, and had a reputation for protecting his clients' interests with surgical precision. Show me what you found, he said, without preamble. I handed him my phone with the photos of the divorce papers. He scrolled through them slowly, his expression growing more serious with each page. These are professionally prepared, he said finally. Kellerman doesn't file anything unless they're confident they can win. What does that tell you? That your wife has been planning this for months and believes she has a significant advantage. He set down the phone. The asset division here is aggressive. She's claiming sole ownership of property you both contributed to. Can she do that? Only if she can prove you agreed to it or if there are documents supporting her claim. Mitchell leaned back in his chair. But here's the thing, Wilder. You have something she doesn't know about. The audit clause. Exactly. If we can prove financial misconduct, the entire prenup shifts in your favor. Hidden assets, undisclosed transfers, fraudulent documentation, any of that triggers penalty clauses that would leave her with significantly less than she's expecting. I pulled out the digital recorder Vera had given me. What about this? Mitchell listened to the entire recording twice, making notes on a legal pad. When it finished, he looked up with something approaching a smile. This changes everything. This isn't just adultery, Wilder. This is conspiracy to commit fraud. She's not just cheating on you, she's stealing from you. What's my next move? We file first, today, before she has a chance to move any more assets or serve you with her papers. Mitchell stood up. I'll need you to sign some documents, and then we're going to freeze every account she has access to. Can you do that? With this evidence? Absolutely. We'll file for an emergency injunction to prevent asset dissipation while the audit is conducted. She won't be able to move a dime without court approval. I felt something cold and satisfying settle in my chest. How long before she finds out? She'll be served by end of business today. Her lawyer will probably call her within an hour of receiving the papers. And then? Mitchell's smile was sharp. Then we find out exactly how much your wife has stolen from you, and we make sure she pays for it. I was sitting in the railcar tap at 5:30 that afternoon when my phone started buzzing. 3 missed calls from Zoya in the span of 2 minutes, followed by a text that was just one word: home. Now. I ordered another whiskey and turned off my phone. The rail car was exactly the kind of dive bar that existed in every small northeastern city: dark wood, neon beer signs, and a bartender named Tommy, who'd been pouring drinks for locals since the Reagan administration. It was also the unofficial gossip central for our neighborhood, which made it perfect for what I had planned. "Rough day?" Tommy asked, refilling my glass without being asked. "Getting better by the minute," I said. The door chimed and Vera walked in, scanning the room until she spotted me in the corner booth. She looked excited. "It's done?" she asked, sliding across from me. "Served an hour ago. Mitchell says her lawyer probably called her immediately." "Good, because I have an update on your boy Rylan." Vera pulled out her phone. "I did some digging through public records. His charity foundation? It's a joke. They've raised over $2 million in donations over the past 3 years and spent exactly $47,000 on actual charitable activities. Where did the rest go? Administrative costs, which is a fancy way of saying Rylan's lifestyle. The foundation pays for his condo, his car, his travel expenses, even his gym membership." Vera's expression was disgusted. "He's basically running a legal scam. Is that information public?" "The tax filings are, but I doubt anyone's ever bothered to look closely at the numbers." She leaned forward. "Want to know the best part? Zoya's been helping him with the books for the past 6 months. Her signature is on several financial documents." I felt a slow smile spread across my face. "She's not just stealing from me. She's helping him steal from charity donors." "Exactly. And if someone were to tip off the state attorney general's office about irregularities in the foundation's spending, Rylan and Zoya would both be under investigation for fraud, tax evasion, and misuse of charitable funds." Vera raised her wine glass. "Your wife picked the wrong accomplice, Wilder." My phone lit up with another call from Zoya. I let it go to voicemail. "She's probably losing her mind right about now," I said. "Good. Let her sweat for a while. It'll make her more likely to make mistakes." We spent the next hour planning phase 2 of our strategy. By the time I finally headed home, it was past 8 and I had 17 missed calls from Zoya. The house was blazing with lights when I pulled into the driveway. Through the front window, I could see Zoya pacing back and forth in the living room, her phone pressed to her ear. Even from outside, her body language screamed panic. I sat in my car for a few minutes watching her. 12 years of marriage, and I was seeing her clearly for the first time. The way she gestured when she was lying, the way she touched her neck when she was nervous, the way she checked her appearance in every reflective surface, even when she was alone. When I finally walked through the front door, she spun around like she'd been waiting by the window. "Where the hell have you been?" she demanded. "Having dinner with Vera. I told you she was going through some relationship drama." "For 4 hours?" I hung up my jacket slowly, deliberately calm. She needed to talk through some complicated financial stuff with her boyfriend. You know how these things go. Zoya's eyes were red-rimmed and wild. "We need to talk. Right now." "Sure. What's on your mind?" She stared at me for a long moment, clearly trying to figure out how much I knew. Did you do something today? Something legal?" "Like what?" "Don't play games with me, Wilder. My lawyer called this afternoon. Someone filed for divorce and requested an asset freeze." I sat down on the couch, keeping my expression neutral. "Someone filed for divorce? That's terrible news. Who would do such a thing?" "You know damn well who did it." "Actually, I don't. But if someone filed for divorce, they must have had a good reason." I looked up at her with innocent eyes. "Did you do something that would make someone want to divorce you?" The color drained from her face. "You can't be serious." "About what?" "Zoya, I'm completely lost here. You're talking about lawyers and asset freezes like I'm supposed to know what any of that means." She sat down across from me, her hands shaking slightly. The papers say you filed for divorce this morning. They say you have evidence of financial misconduct. Huh, that's interesting. I leaned back against the couch cushions. What kind of financial misconduct? Hidden assets, unauthorized transfers. Her voice was getting smaller. Fraud. Fraud? That sounds serious. Did you commit fraud, Zoya? Of course not. Then you don't have anything to worry about, right? If you didn't do anything wrong, the investigation will clear everything up. She stood up abruptly, beginning to pace again. Investigation? Well, if someone filed papers claiming fraud, there's probably going to be an investigation. That's how these things work. I watched her face carefully. Unless you have something to hide? I don't have anything to hide. Great. Then we'll get through this together, just like we always do. Zoya stopped pacing and stared at me. Together? Of course. You're my wife. I'm not going anywhere. I smiled at her. Although I have to admit, I'm curious about who would file for divorce and make fraud accusations. Do you have any enemies? Anyone who might want to hurt you? No, I don't understand what's happening. Maybe you should call your lawyer back. Get some advice on how to handle false accusations. She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers. I need to make some calls. Sure, take your time. I'll be in my office if you need anything. I stood up and headed toward the hallway, then turned back like I'd just remembered something. Oh, one more thing, Zoya. You might want to check your bank accounts. If someone really did file for an asset freeze, your cards might not work until this gets sorted out. The look of pure terror that crossed her face was worth every sleepless night I'd had since finding those divorce papers. I went to my office and closed the door, then called Vera. How did it go? She asked immediately. She's panicking, trying to figure out how much I know and what her options are. Good. Let her panic for a while. Desperate people make stupid decisions. What's our next move? Tomorrow morning, I'm going to accidentally run into Miranda Voss at the coffee shop near Zoya's office. Miranda's Zoya's best friend and biggest gossip source. If anyone knows about Rylan, it's her. What are you going to tell her? That I'm worried about Zoya because she's been acting strange lately. Ask if Miranda's noticed anything unusual. Vera's voice was satisfied. Miranda loves drama. She'll spill everything she knows and then some. And then? Then we'll know exactly what Zoya's been telling her friends about you, about Rylan, and about her plans. Information is power, Wilder. What about Rylan? I'm working on that too. I have a friend who works at the athletic club where he has a membership. Apparently he's there every morning at 6, always in the sauna after his workout. Vera paused. Might be a good place for an accidental encounter. You want me to confront him? I want you to let him know that you exist and that you're not the pushover he thinks you are. Guys like Rylan respect power and fear exposure. Right now, he thinks you're just some boring husband who doesn't pay attention. And after tomorrow? After tomorrow, he'll know he picked the wrong marriage to wreck. I hung up and sat back in my chair, feeling more in control than I had in days. Through the door, I could hear Zoya on the phone in the living room, her voice high and strained as she tried to explain the situation to someone. My computer chimed with an email from Mitchell Barnes. Asset freeze is in effect as of 6 p.m. today. Forensic audit begins Monday morning. We should meet Friday to review strategy for next phase. I typed back. Perfect. See you Friday at 9 a.m. Then I opened the cloud folder and began uploading more documents, credit card statements, phone records, anything that might be useful for the investigation. I was particularly interested in the charges from restaurants and hotels over the past 6 months. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for. Lunch dates that lasted 3 hours, business trips that included spa charges, hotel rooms booked on nights when Zoya claimed to be working late. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Rylan Shaw. We need to talk. I stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, I'm sorry. Do I know you? The response came immediately. Don't play games. Meet me tomorrow morning. Athletic Club, 7 a.m. I think you have the wrong number. I don't know who you are. I'm the guy who's been sleeping with your wife for 8 months. I set down the phone and laughed out loud. The arrogance was breathtaking. He actually thought he was in a position to make demands. I typed back, "Congratulations. You can have her, but you might want to check her bank accounts first. I think you'll find she's not as wealthy as she pretended to be." My phone rang immediately. Unknown number. "Hello?" I answered. "Listen to me very carefully," a man's voice said. Rylan, presumably. "You're going to drop this divorce and the asset freeze, or things are going to get very unpleasant for you. I'm sorry, I think there's been some confusion. I haven't filed for divorce." "Don't lie to me." "I'm not lying. I love my wife very much. Why would I divorce her?" I paused. Although I have to say, if she's been sleeping with someone else for 8 months, that would certainly explain why she's been so distant lately. Silence on the other end. "Are you still there?" I asked. "Because I have to tell you, this is very disturbing news. I thought Zoya and I were happy." "You're really going to pretend you don't know?" "Know what? That my wife is cheating on me?" "No, I didn't know that, but I appreciate you telling me. It explains a lot." I let my voice get emotional. 8 months? Really? More silence. "I should probably call a lawyer," I continued. "If Zoya's been having an affair, that changes everything about our prenup agreement." "What kind of changes?" "Well, adultery is specifically mentioned as grounds for forfeiture of spousal support and asset division. If I can prove she's been cheating..." I trailed off. "Wait, who did you say you were again?" The line went quiet. "Hello? Are you there?" He'd hung up. I sat back in my chair, grinning. Rylan Shaw was about to learn that threatening a forensic auditor was like challenging a chess master to a game of checkers. My office door opened and Zoya appeared, her face pale and drawn. "That was him, wasn't it?" she said. "Who?" "Rylan. I heard you on the phone." I looked at her with confusion. "Who's Rylan?" "Don't do this, Wilder, please, we can work this out." "Work what out?" "Zoya, you're not making any sense. First, you're talking about divorce papers and asset freezes. Now you're asking about someone named Rylan." I stood up and moved toward her. "Are you feeling okay? You seem really stressed." She backed away from me. "Stop pretending. I know you know." "Know what?" "About Rylan, about the money, about everything." "What money? And who is Rylan?" I reached out like I was going to touch her forehead. "Maybe you should sit down. You look like you might be having some kind of breakdown." "I'm not having a breakdown." Okay. But you're talking about people I've never heard of and money problems we don't have. That's not normal, Zoya." She stared at me for a long moment, her eyes wide and desperate. "You really don't know?" "Know what?" "Nothing. Never mind. I'm going to bed." "Good idea. Things will probably make more sense in the morning." She turned to leave, then stopped. "Wilder?" "Yeah? Do you love me?" I looked at her standing in my doorway, this woman I'd shared 12 years of my life with, and felt absolutely nothing. "Of course I do, Zoya. You're my wife." She nodded and disappeared down the hallway. A few minutes later, I heard the bedroom door close. I stayed in my office until well past midnight, planning the next day's moves. By the time I finally went to bed, Zoya was asleep or pretending to be. I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathing, and thought about how different everything would be 24 hours from now. Tomorrow, Rylan Shaw would learn what happened when you underestimated a man who made his living finding hidden truths. Tomorrow, Zoya would discover that her carefully constructed lies were unraveling faster than she could spin new ones. And tomorrow, I would take the first real step toward making them both pay for thinking I was too stupid to notice what they were doing. I smiled in the dark and fell asleep, planning their destruction. The Riverside Athletic Club was exactly what I'd expected, all glass and chrome and pretentious people pretending their morning workouts made them better than everyone else. I'd never set foot in the place before, but my temporary membership card got me through the front door at 6:45 a.m. Finding Ryland Shaw was easy. Vera's description had been perfect: tall, artificially tan, with the kind of sculpted muscles that screamed personal trainer and expensive supplements. He was holding court near the free weights, surrounded by 3 other guys who hung on his every word like he was dispensing wisdom from Mount Olympus. I grabbed a towel and a water bottle from the front desk and found a bench where I could watch him without being obvious. For 20 minutes I observed his routine, his mannerisms, the way he checked himself out in every mirror he passed. The guy was exactly as arrogant as Vera had described. At 7:15, he headed toward the locker room. I followed at a distance. The sauna was empty except for Rylan, who was sprawled across one of the wooden benches like he owned the place. Perfect. I opened the door and stepped inside, acting like I belonged there. "Morning," I said casually, settling onto the bench across from him. He looked up from his phone, taking in my appearance with obvious disdain. "Do I know you?" "I don't think we've been formally introduced. Wilder Sornell." I extended my hand like we were meeting at a business conference. The change in his expression was immediate and satisfying. He went from dismissive to alert to something approaching panic in the span of 3 seconds. "You," he said. "Me," I agreed cheerfully. "Nice place you've got here. Very exclusive." Ryland sat up straighter, trying to regain his composure. "What are you doing here?" "Working out, staying in shape. You know how it is." I gestured around the sauna. "Though I have to say, this is my favorite part. Nothing like a good sweat to clear your head." "You need to leave." "Why?" "It's a public facility. Well, semi-public. I paid for a membership and everything." I pulled out my phone and showed him the temporary membership card. "See? All legitimate." He stood up abruptly. "I'm not doing this with you." "Doing what? Having a conversation? Come on, Rylan, we have so much in common." "We have nothing in common." "Sure we do. We both know my wife intimately. Although I have to say, 8 months seems like a long time to keep a secret. That must have taken some serious coordination." Ryland's jaw tightened. "Zoya told you." "Actually, you told me. Last night on the phone, remember? Very helpful information, by the way. I had no idea she was capable of maintaining a relationship that complex." I leaned back against the wooden wall. "Tell me, what's she like when she's not pretending to be a devoted wife?" "This conversation is over." He moved toward the door, but I didn't budge from my position. "You know what's funny?" I continued conversationally. "I've been married to Zoya for 12 years, and I thought I knew everything about her, but you've shown me a whole different side. The lying, the financial manipulation, the elaborate planning. It's actually quite impressive." "Move." "In a minute. I'm curious about something first. The Cayman account. Was that your idea or hers?" Ryland froze halfway to the door. "What Cayman account?" "The one where you've been stashing my money while planning to divorce me." "Very clever, really. If I hadn't found that recording, I never would have known about it." "What recording?" I pulled out my phone and hit play. Zoya's voice filled the steamy air. "The transfers have to be clean, Rylan. If Wilder finds out about the Cayman account before I file, he could freeze everything." Ryland's face went white. "Where did you get that?" "Does it matter? The point is, I have it, along with bank records, phone logs, hotel receipts, and about 40 other pieces of evidence that prove you two have been planning to steal from me for months." "That's not... We weren't... stealing?" "Sure you were. Taking marital assets and hiding them offshore to avoid property division is textbook fraud. Add in the adultery and the conspiracy charges, and you're looking at some serious legal problems." Ryland sat back down heavily. "What do you want?" "Want?" "Nothing. I already have everything I need." I stood up and moved toward the door. "But I thought you should know that the asset freeze went into effect yesterday, so whatever money you thought you were going to get from this arrangement is now tied up in forensic accounting." You can't do that. Already did. Turns out our prenup has some very specific clauses about financial misconduct. Zoya probably forgot to mention that part. I paused with my hand on the door handle. Oh, and Rylan? You might want to check on your charity foundation. I hear the state attorney general is very interested in organizations that misuse donor funds. What are you talking about? Tax records are public information. Amazing what you can learn when you know how to read financial statements. I smiled at him. Have a great workout. I left him sitting in the sauna, looking like someone had just told him his trust fund had evaporated. The drive home took 15 minutes, but I spent the time planning my next move. Rylan would call Zoya immediately, which meant she'd be in full panic mode by the time I got back to the house. Perfect. Sure enough, Zoya's car was gone when I pulled into the driveway. She'd probably rushed out to meet Rylan somewhere they could talk without being overheard, which gave me time to implement phase 3 of my plan. I went straight to my office and called Mitchell Barnes. How did it go? He asked. Better than expected. Rylan Shaw is officially terrified, and Zoya is about to find out that her boyfriend isn't the criminal mastermind she thought he was. Good. I have some updates for you, too. The forensic audit turned up 3 separate offshore accounts with a combined balance of just over $400,000. $400,000? From our joint assets? From your joint assets, your personal accounts, and some creative bookkeeping with your tax returns. She's been skimming money for almost 2 years. I sat down hard in my desk chair. 2 years? The earliest transfer we found was dated 18 months ago. Small amounts at first, then larger chunks as she got more confident. Mitchell's voice was grim. Wilder. She didn't just plan to leave you, she planned to bankrupt you. Can we get it back? All of it, plus penalties and interest. The prenup clauses you insisted on are going to save you about $600,000 in total. What about criminal charges? That's up to you. We have enough evidence to support fraud charges, tax evasion, and conspiracy. If you want to pursue criminal prosecution, the district attorney would probably be very interested. I thought about Zoya sitting in some coffee shop right now, trying to figure out how to salvage her plan, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Let's focus on the civil case for now, but keep the criminal option open. Understood. What's your next move? I'm going to let them panic for a while. Desperate people make stupid decisions. Be careful, Wilder. Cornered animals can be dangerous. I hung up and called Vera. How did the sauna go? She asked immediately. Rylan Shaw is officially having the worst day of his life. What did you find out from Miranda? Oh, this is good. Miranda knows everything. Apparently, Zoya's been bragging about her exit strategy for months. She told Miranda that you were too boring and predictable to ever suspect anything. What else? Rylan promised to set her up in his condo once the divorce was final. He also promised to make her a partner in his foundation, which would give her access to all that donor money. She was planning to help him steal from charity? Worse than that, she was planning to expand the operation. Miranda said Zoya had ideas about setting up multiple foundations and creating a whole network of fake charities. I rubbed my forehead. She wasn't just leaving me. She was planning to become a career criminal. With your money as startup capital. Pretty ambitious for someone who used to complain about balancing her checkbook. What did Miranda say when you told her you were worried about Zoya? She got defensive at first, but then she started spilling details. Apparently Zoya's been acting paranoid lately, asking questions about asset protection and whether Miranda knew any lawyers who specialized in offshore banking. Did Miranda think that was strange? She thought Zoya was being smart. Miranda's exact words were, "Every woman should have an escape plan." Vera's voice was disgusted. I wanted to slap her. Did she say anything about timing? Zoya was planning to file the divorce papers next week. She wanted to wait until after your joint tax return was processed so she could maximize the asset grab. Next week? Miranda said Zoya was excited because everything was finally falling into place. She'd moved the last of the money, Rylan had promised to leave his wife, and you were completely clueless. His wife? Oh, did I forget to mention that? Ryland Shaw is married, has been for 6 years. His wife is some socialite who inherited even more money than he did. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. So Zoya was planning to leave me for a guy who was planning to leave his wife, and they were both planning to steal money to fund their new life together. Gets better. Miranda said Ryland told Zoya he was going to divorce his wife and split the assets with her, except Ryland's wife has her own family money, which means it's probably protected by trusts and prenups. So Ryland was lying to Zoya about the money, and Zoya was lying to Ryland about me being clueless. Exactly. They were both planning to screw each other over while screwing you over together. That's almost poetic. It's about to get more poetic, because I have one more piece of information that's going to make your day. What? Ryland's wife hired a private investigator 3 weeks ago. She knows about the affair. I sat back in my chair, feeling pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. How do you know that? Miranda's cousin works for the PI firm. Small world, right? Anyway, they've been building a case against Ryland for weeks. Photos, financial records, the whole thing. Does Ryland know? Not yet, but he's about to find out. The PI is planning to serve him with papers tomorrow. What kind of papers? Divorce papers, with a request for a full forensic audit of his finances and a restraining order to prevent asset dissipation. I started laughing again. So while Ryland and Zoya were planning to steal my money and run away together, Ryland's wife was planning to take everything he had. Justice has a sense of humor sometimes. What about the foundation? That's the best part. The PI's investigation uncovered the charity fraud. Ryland's wife is planning to turn over all the evidence to the state attorney general as part of her divorce filing. So Ryland is about to be hit with divorce papers, fraud charges, and the collapse of his entire financial scheme. All in the same week that your asset freeze makes it impossible for him to access the money he stole from you. And Zoya is about to find out that her boyfriend is broke, facing criminal charges, and married to someone who makes her look like an amateur when it comes to revenge planning. I hung up and sat in my office, marveling at how quickly everything was unraveling for them. This morning, Zoya and Ryland thought they were on the verge of pulling off the perfect crime. By tomorrow, they'd both be facing financial ruin and possible prison time. My phone buzzed with a text from Zoya. "Where are you? We need to talk immediately." I texted back, "At home, in my office, doors open." 20 minutes later, I heard her car in the driveway. She came through the front door like a storm, her heels clicking on the hardwood as she marched toward my office. "We need to fix this," she said without preamble. I looked up from my computer with innocent eyes. "Fix what?" "Don't start with that again. You know exactly what." "Actually, I don't. But you seem upset, so why don't you tell me what's wrong?" She sat down across from my desk, her hands shaking slightly. "The asset freeze, the divorce papers, all of it." "Oh, that. Yeah, that's been bothering me too." I leaned back in my chair. I mean, someone filed for divorce and made fraud accusations. That's pretty serious stuff. You filed for divorce. Did I? Huh. I don't remember doing that. I frowned, like I was trying to recall. Although I have been under a lot of stress lately. Maybe I did something and forgot about it. "Wilder, please. We can work this out." "Work what out? If I filed for divorce, I must have had a good reason. What do you think that reason might have been?" She stared at me for a long moment. "I made some mistakes." "What kind of mistakes?" "Financial mistakes. I moved some money without telling you." "How much money?" "Not that much. Maybe 50,000. I pulled up the forensic audit report on my computer. According to this, it was closer to 400,000, over 18 months. Her face went pale. "You don't understand. I was trying to protect us." "Protect us from what?" "From your business failing, from losing everything if your company went under." "My company is doing fine, Zoya. We're actually having our best year ever." "I didn't know that. You never tell me anything about work. You never asked, but that's beside the point. You stole $400,000 from our joint accounts and hid it offshore. I didn't steal it. I was protecting it. For who? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Were you protecting it for Rylan Shaw? How do you know about Rylan? He called me last night, introduced himself as the guy who's been sleeping with my wife for 8 months. Very friendly conversation. Zoya put her head in her hands. This is all wrong. This isn't how it was supposed to happen. How was it supposed to happen? I was going to tell you about Rylan, about wanting a divorce, but I was going to do it gently so we could work out the details like adults. And the $400,000? That was just to make sure I had enough to start over. Start over with Rylan. Yes. Using money you stole from me. It wasn't stealing. We're married. It's community property. Not when you hide it to avoid property division. That's fraud, Zoya. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. What do you want? Money? I'll give you back every penny. I don't want the money back. I want to know why. Why what? Why you thought I was stupid enough not to notice. Why you thought I wouldn't fight back. Why you thought you could just walk away with half my life's work and I'd let it happen. You're not a fighter, Wilder. You never have been. You avoid confrontation. I avoid unnecessary confrontation. This is very necessary. What are you going to do? I turned my computer screen toward her so she could see the forensic audit report. I'm going to let the lawyers handle it. All of it. What does that mean? It means you and Rylan are going to face the consequences of your choices. Civil consequences, criminal consequences, whatever the law allows. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. She stood up abruptly. Fine. If that's how you want to play this, I'll fight back. With what? Your accounts are frozen. Your boyfriend is about to be served with divorce papers by his wife, and the state attorney general is investigating his charity fraud. What are you talking about? Rylan didn't tell you? His wife knows about the affair. She's filing for divorce tomorrow, and she's turning over evidence of the foundation fraud to prosecutors. Zoya sat back down heavily. That's not possible. Very possible. In fact, it's happening as we speak. How do you know all this? I know lots of things, Zoya. I know about the Cayman accounts. I know about your plans to expand Rylan's charity scam. I know about the fake business trips and the hotel charges and the restaurant receipts. You've been spying on me. I've been paying attention, there's a difference. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Who are you? I'm the guy you married 12 years ago. The same guy you've been lying to, stealing from, and planning to destroy. I stood up. The only difference is now I'm fighting back. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. She left without another word, and I heard her car start up a few minutes later. I called Vera immediately. She knows, I said when she picked up. How did she take it? About as well as you'd expect. She's scared, angry, and desperate. Which means she's about to do something stupid. Good. Stupid is exactly what we want right now. What's our next move? We wait. Let her and Rylan try to figure out how to salvage this mess. Meanwhile, the walls keep closing in. And then? Then we finish what they started. I hung up and sat back in my chair, feeling something like satisfaction for the first time in weeks. Tomorrow, Rylan Shaw would discover that his wife was just as ruthless as he was. Tomorrow, Zoya would realize that her boyfriend was facing financial ruin and criminal charges. And tomorrow, I would take the final steps toward making sure they both paid for underestimating the boring, predictable husband who turned out to be anything but. The endgame was about to begin. I woke up Friday morning to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages, all from Zoya. The messages started desperate and escalated to furious, then circled back to pleading. The last one, sent at 3:17 a.m. just said, "Please call me." I deleted them all without reading the details and headed downstairs to make coffee. The morning news was playing on the kitchen TV when my phone rang. Mitchell Barnes. "Turn on Channel 7, he said without preamble. I grabbed the remote and flipped channels until I found the local news. A perfectly coiffed reporter was standing outside the Riverside Athletic Club, speaking into a microphone. The state attorney general's office executed search warrants this morning at the offices of the Shaw Foundation, seizing computers and financial records as part of an ongoing investigation into alleged misuse of charitable funds. Foundation Director Rylan Shaw could not be reached for comment, but sources close to the investigation say the probe was triggered by evidence provided during divorce proceedings. I turned up the volume. The foundation, which has raised over $2 million in donations since 2019, allegedly spent less than 5% of those funds on actual charitable activities. The remainder was reportedly used for administrative expenses, including luxury travel, entertainment, and personal expenses for foundation leadership. "Holy hell," I said. "It gets better," Mitchell said. "Shaw's wife didn't just file for divorce yesterday. She also filed a whistleblower complaint with the IRS and turned over 2 years' worth of financial records to the FBI. The FBI? Charity fraud that crosses state lines becomes a federal crime. Shaw's foundation has donors in 12 states and operates accounts in 3 different countries." On the TV, the reporter was now standing outside a glass office building downtown. The investigation has also expanded to include several local businesses and individuals who may have been involved in the alleged scheme. Sources tell Channel 7 that at least one other person has been questioned in connection with the case. My doorbell rang. "I think that might be for you," Mitchell said. "Don't say anything without me present." I opened the front door to find 2 people in dark suits holding badges. FBI. "Mr. Sornell? We'd like to ask you a few questions about your relationship with Rylan Shaw and the Shaw Foundation." "I'll need to call my attorney." "Of course. We can wait." I called Mitchell back. "They're here. Don't say anything. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I invited the agents inside and offered them coffee, which they politely declined. We sat in uncomfortable silence until Mitchell arrived, briefcase in hand and lawyer face firmly in place. "My client is happy to cooperate," he said, "but we'd like to understand the scope of your investigation first." The lead agent, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, opened a folder. "We're investigating allegations of fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering in connection with the Shaw Foundation. Mr. Sornell's name appears on several financial documents related to the case." "What kind of documents?" Mitchell asked. "Bank transfers, investment records, tax filings. We believe Mr. Sornell may have been a victim of the scheme rather than a participant, but we need to verify that." I looked at Mitchell, who nodded slightly. "I've never had any business relationship with Rylan Shaw or his foundation," I said carefully. "Until this week, I'd never even heard of either one." "What about your wife, Zoya Sornell?" "What about her?" "She's listed as a financial consultant for the Shaw Foundation on several documents dating back 8 months. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "I wasn't aware of that." The agent pulled out a stack of papers. "These are consulting agreements signed by your wife for services provided to the foundation. The total compensation was just over $60,000. $60,000. Paid directly to accounts under her control. We have reason to believe this money may have come from your joint marital assets through a series of transfers designed to obscure the source." Mitchell leaned forward. "Are you saying Mrs. Sornell was paying herself consulting fees with money stolen from her husband?" "That's what we're trying to determine." I stared at the documents, recognizing Zoya's signature on every page. She hadn't just been planning to steal my money and run away with Rylan. She'd been stealing my money to pay herself for helping him steal from charity donors. "There's more," the agent continued. We found evidence that Mrs. Sornell helped design the financial structure that allowed the foundation to hide donor funds. She created shell companies, offshore accounts, and investment vehicles that were used to launder money through multiple jurisdictions. She's a mid-level brokerage employee, I said. How would she know how to do any of that? According to our investigation, she spent considerable time researching financial crimes and asset protection strategies. Her internet search history shows hundreds of queries related to offshore banking, money laundering, and avoiding financial disclosure requirements. Mitchell was taking notes furiously. What kind of time frame are we looking at? The consulting relationship began 8 months ago, but the research activity goes back almost 2 years. Mrs. Sornell appears to have been planning this for a very long time. 2 years. The same timeline Mitchell had discovered in the forensic audit of our accounts. What do you need from my client? Mitchell asked. Full cooperation with our investigation, financial records, communications, anything that might help us trace the movement of funds. The agent looked at me directly. Mr. Sornell, we believe you were the primary victim of this scheme. Your cooperation could help us recover your assets and ensure that the people responsible face appropriate consequences. What kind of consequences? Federal fraud charges carry sentences of up to 20 years. Money laundering can add another 20. Tax evasion is usually 5 to 10, depending on the amount involved. And if they cooperate? That would be up to the prosecutor, but given the scope of this case and the number of victims involved, I wouldn't expect any significant reduction in charges. After the agents left, Mitchell and I sat in my kitchen, reviewing everything they'd shared. This is bigger than we thought, he said. Zoya wasn't just stealing from you. She was the architect of a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. How is that possible? She complains when her credit card statement is more than 3 pages long. People are capable of learning new skills when they're motivated enough, and the prospect of stealing millions of dollars is pretty good motivation. My phone buzzed with a text from Vera. Turn on the news again. Channel 4 this time. I grabbed the remote and found Channel 4. Another reporter, this one standing outside Zoya's office building. Employees at Hartwell and Associates were shocked to learn that one of their colleagues is under investigation in connection with a major charity fraud case. Sources tell Channel 4 that Zoya Sornell, a senior associate at the brokerage firm, used her position to help design complex financial instruments that were used to hide stolen donor funds. The camera cut to a man in an expensive suit standing behind a podium. Hartwell and Associates has placed Mrs. Sornell on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. We are cooperating fully with law enforcement and conducting our own internal review of any client accounts she may have had access to. She's been suspended, Mitchell observed. More than that. They're reviewing her client accounts. If she was stealing from clients too, the charges keep multiplying. My phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Sornell, this is Janet Morrison from Channel 7 News. We're doing a story about the Shaw Foundation investigation, and we'd like to get your perspective as one of the victims. No comment. We understand your wife was involved in the scheme. How does it feel to know that your own spouse was stealing from you to fund a criminal enterprise? I hung up. The phone rang again immediately, different number. Mr. Sornell, this is David Chen from the Herald. We have sources saying your wife embezzled over $400,000 from your joint accounts. Can you confirm that amount? I turned off the phone. You're going to need to prepare for this, Mitchell said. This is a big story, and you're going to be portrayed as either a victim or an accomplice. Better to control the narrative. I don't want to talk to reporters. You may not have a choice. If you don't tell your story, someone else will tell it for you. Before I could respond, my doorbell rang again. Through the front window, I could see a news van parked across the street and a cameraman setting up on my lawn. Back door, Mitchell said. We slipped out through the kitchen and got into his car, which was parked in my garage. As we pulled out of the alley behind my house, I could see 2 more news vans arriving on my street. Where are we going? My office, We need to plan your next moves carefully. What about Zoya? What about her? Where is she? Is she under arrest? Mitchell checked his phone. Not yet, but I'd expect that to change soon. The FBI doesn't usually hold press conferences unless they're confident in their case. We spent the next 3 hours at Mitchell's office, going through every detail of the investigation and planning my response strategy. By the time we finished, it was clear that Zoya was facing decades in federal prison, and Ryland Shaw was looking at financial ruin, even if he somehow avoided criminal charges. What happens to the money? I asked. The $400,000 from your accounts? You'll get that back, plus interest and penalties? The $60,000 in consulting fees? That becomes evidence in the criminal case, but you'll eventually recover that too. And their other assets? Shaw's wife is going to take everything he has in the divorce. Zoya's assets will be seized to pay restitution to the charity fraud victims. Mitchell closed his folder. By the time this is over, they'll both be broke and facing serious prison time. Good. There is one more thing, Wilder. The FBI agent mentioned that they might need you to testify if this goes to trial. Against Zoya? Against both of them. Your testimony about the timeline, the hidden accounts, the planning, all of that could be crucial to proving intent and conspiracy. I thought about Zoya sitting in some lawyer's office right now, probably still trying to figure out how to blame this on someone else. I'll testify. Even against your wife? Especially against my wife. Mitchell drove me back to my house after dark. The news vans were gone, but I could see neighbors peeking through their curtains as we pulled into my driveway. Inside, my answering machine was blinking with 47 new messages. I deleted them all without listening. I poured myself a whiskey and sat in my living room, looking around at the house Zoya and I had shared for 8 years. Tomorrow, everything would be different. Tomorrow, she'd probably be under arrest. Tomorrow, the woman I'd married would officially become a federal criminal. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Rylan. We need to meet. Tonight. I have a proposition. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, I don't think we have anything to discuss. The response came immediately. I can give you information about Zoya that you don't have. Information that could help you in court. What kind of information? Meet me at the Riverside Athletic Club. Midnight. Come alone. I looked at the clock. 11:30. I called Mitchell. Don't do it, he said immediately. Shaw is desperate. Desperate people do unpredictable things. What if he really does have information about Zoya? Then he can share it with the FBI. You don't need to put yourself at risk. I'll be careful. Wilder, listen to me. Shaw's entire life is falling apart. His wife is divorcing him. The FBI is investigating him. His foundation is being shut down, and his girlfriend is about to be arrested. He has nothing left to lose. Which is exactly why he might be willing to tell the truth about what Zoya did. Or why he might try to hurt you. I thought about that for a moment. I'm going. Then I'm calling the police and having them meet you there. No. If Shaw sees cops, he'll run. I need to hear what he has to say. This is a bad idea. Probably, but I'm doing it anyway. I hung up and headed for my car. It was time to have a final conversation with the man who'd helped my wife destroy our marriage. And maybe, if I was lucky, I'd finally get some answers about why she'd thought I was too stupid to fight back. The athletic club parking lot was empty except for Ryland's silver BMW. I parked next to it and walked toward the building, my footsteps echoing in the silence. Ryland was waiting by the front entrance, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the past week. His usual tan seemed pale, and his expensive clothes looked wrinkled. Thank you for coming, he said. Talk. Not here. Inside. He led me through the empty lobby toward the locker rooms. The place was eerily quiet, lit only by emergency lighting that cast long shadows across the walls. What information do you have about Zoya? I asked. She's been planning this longer than you think, longer than I knew. How much longer? 3 years, maybe more. We'd reached the sauna where I'd confronted him earlier in the week. He opened the door and gestured for me to go inside. I'm not getting in a sauna with you, Rylan. Fine. We'll talk here. He sat down on one of the benches outside the sauna door. I remained standing. 3 years ago, Zoya contacted me, he began. Not the other way around. She'd researched my foundation, my family, my finances. She knew exactly how much I was worth and exactly how vulnerable I was to the right kind of approach. What kind of approach? She offered to help me expand the foundation's operations in exchange for a partnership. She said she had experience with financial planning and asset management. She was lying. I know that now. But at the time, she was very convincing. She had business plans, financial projections, legal documents. She made it seem like she was doing me a favor. When did the affair start? 6 months later. But that was part of her plan too. She seduced me, made me think it was my idea, made me think I was taking advantage of her instead of the other way around. Why are you telling me this? Because I just found out that she was planning to frame me for everything. What do you mean? Rylan pulled out his phone and showed me a text message thread. These are from yesterday, after the FBI raid. She's trying to convince my lawyer that I forced her to help with the fraud, that I threatened her if she didn't cooperate. I read the messages. Zoya was painting herself as a victim, claiming that Rylan had manipulated her into participating in the scheme against her will. She's throwing you under the bus. Completely. According to her version, I masterminded everything, and she was just a helpless victim who got in too deep to back out. Why should I believe you? Because I have recordings. What kind of recordings? Phone calls, meetings, Zoya planning every detail of how to steal your money and hide it offshore. She wasn't a victim, Wilder. She was the architect. Let me hear them. Rylan pulled out a small digital recorder similar to the one Vera had found. This is from 2 months ago. Zoya explaining how to structure the transfers to avoid detection. He hit play. Zoya's voice filled the empty locker room. The key is to make the transfers look like legitimate business expenses. Small amounts, spread across multiple accounts, with proper documentation for each transaction. Wilder does our taxes, but he doesn't audit every line item. As long as the totals match what he expects, he won't dig deeper. You're sure he won't notice? I'm sure. He trusts me completely. That's his weakness. Rylan stopped the recording. There are hours of this. Zoya planning every detail, explaining how to manipulate you, how to hide the evidence. Why did you record her? Insurance. I've been burned by business partners before. I always keep records. What do you want from me? Help. The FBI thinks I'm the mastermind because Zoya's painting me as the villain. If you testify about what she's really like, about how calculating she can be, it might help my case. You want me to help you avoid prison? I want you to tell the truth about your wife. I stared at him for a long moment. The truth about my wife is that she's a criminal who stole from me, lied to me, and planned to destroy my life. But you know what else is true? You helped her do it. She manipulated me too. You're a grown man, Rylan. You made your own choices. So did she. Yes, she did. And now you're both going to face the consequences. I turned to leave, but Rylan grabbed my arm. Wait, there's something else. What? The $400,000? That's not all of it. What do you mean? There's more money. A lot more. Zoya has accounts you don't know about. Assets she's been hiding for years. How much more? Close to $1 million. Maybe more. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Where? Everywhere. Swiss accounts, real estate investments, cryptocurrency wallets. She's been planning this since before she met me. How do you know? She showed me the statements. She was proud of how clever she'd been, how she'd managed to hide so much money without you noticing. Why are you telling me this now? Because I'm going to prison anyway. My wife's divorce lawyer is going to take everything I have, and the FBI is going to charge me with fraud regardless of what I say about Zoya. He looked up at me with desperate eyes. But you still have a chance to get your money back. All of it. What do you want in return? Nothing. I just want you to know what kind of person you married. I studied his face, trying to determine if he was telling the truth or just trying to manipulate me one last time. Give me the recordings. All of them? Everything you have on Zoya. Everything that proves she was the mastermind. He handed me the digital recorder and a flash drive. It's all there. Hours of conversations, planning sessions, her explaining how to steal from you and cover it up. And the information about the hidden accounts? On the flash drive. Account numbers, passwords, everything. I pocketed both devices. This doesn't make us even, Rylan. You still helped her steal from me. I know. And you still slept with my wife for 8 months. I know that too. But maybe this helps you sleep a little better in prison. I left him sitting alone in the empty athletic club and drove home through the quiet streets. Tomorrow I would turn over the recordings to the FBI and to Mitchell Barnes. Tomorrow, the full scope of Zoya's deception would finally be revealed. And tomorrow, I would begin the process of hunting down every penny she'd stolen and making sure she paid for every lie she'd told. The war was almost over. But first, there was one final battle to fight. The FBI agents arrived at my house at 7 a.m. sharp, just as I was finishing my coffee. I'd called them the night before to report my meeting with Rylan and to turn over the recordings he'd given me. Mr. Sornell, Agent Morrison said, accepting the digital recorder and flash drive. This could be exactly what we need to build a comprehensive case. How comprehensive? With these recordings and the financial information, we're looking at charges that could put both Shaw and your wife away for 20 to 30 years. What about the hidden accounts Rylan mentioned? We'll investigate every lead. If there are additional assets, we'll find them and recover them for you. After the agents left, I sat in my kitchen and tried to process everything that had happened in the past week. 7 days ago, I'd been a trusting husband who thought his marriage was solid. Now, I was the key witness in a federal fraud investigation that was about to destroy 2 people I'd thought I knew. My phone rang. Mitchell Barnes. The prosecutor wants to meet with you this afternoon. They're moving fast on this case. How fast? Arrest warrants will be issued today. Zoya